Well, thank you everyone for joining this morning. The first thing on the agenda, I wanted to talk about our transit projects and how we'll be showing those in the plan. I know we've been doing a lot focusing on our roadway prioritization. And so with transit, I'm going to switch screens here. It's a little bit different in that we have more limited kind of revenue sources and specific things that they are supposed to be used for. And so those revenue sources include 5307 funding, which is urban area formula funding that city utilities gets directly. 5310 funding is split between human service agency vehicles for like the elderly and disabled, and then city utilities is able to use a portion of that for some ADA projects. And then 5339, that's bus and bus facilities. So that's what helps purchase buses. Some of that is direct to the region, and other city utilities has applied for that in the past as well. And so then the utility actually provides a large amount of local share that comes from the ratepayers, advertising, fare box, those things. And so a little bit comes from the state of Missouri and Medicaid funding, and then this other local agency funding is, what it takes to match the 5310 funding for those human service vehicles. And so we've met with city utilities, and in looking at kind of how we had all of our projects set up in the last plan and knowing what is specifically needed going forward, they've proposed kind of the following list of projects. And then we also have those human service agency vehicles. And so really what city utilities plans to fund with these revenue sources through 2045 includes operating, preventative maintenance, planning, and security. And there are some requirements for those out of the 5307 funding, some ADA enhancements, and then continuing to work on replacing vehicles and moving towards a more electrified fleet. And so currently it is proposed at some hybrid electric minivans for Access Express, some paratransit buses, though I don't think those are proposed to be electric, and then some fixed route buses in more the near term. And then the shelter sign amenity replacements and improvements, ITS, and then like I mentioned, those human service agency vehicles. So then that leaves a lot to still, I guess, be desired that can't necessarily be funded. And so Brandy's laid out the kind of electric bus replacement schedule through 2040, and really just kind of looking at, as the buses age out, replacing them with electric. And then that also includes electric infrastructure, which is charging stations at the current bus barn. And then because the amount of space that those take, potentially looking at an additional facility in the future. The placemaking shelters, because most shelter replacements are actually done kind of out of the annual budget. This would be for those that would maybe be a little bit more significant in cost and presence. And then a proposed potential trolley service, maybe looking at about 10 years out, purchasing a handful of trolleys should that service be desired, and have a way to be funded, but looking at some sort of seasonal tourist type service. And then these last ones are all out of our route study that we did in 2012. And so with Forward SGF still in progress, there is, not any additional information to, look at what it would take to expand transit and what would be desired out of that. And so we'll probably be carrying over those projects and costs out of that 2012 route study. And that really is kind of, what the plan would look like to expand or I guess create more frequent transit service depending on, which level we're looking at here. And so that is kind of the list of current proposed breakdown for transit. Brandy or Matt, do you want to comment on any of these items?
I don't have any comments, but if anybody has any questions, Matt or I would be happy to discuss those.
Okay, so we're currently working on refining all of the funding numbers for these, and we'll bring that back at another meeting as well. But I think with Forward SGF not being complete, there's still a lot of questions as to what, maybe kind of the final picture is for the community desire for transit in the future. And I think we'll probably see over the next few years a few additional studies answering a few additional questions as to what is possible or what it would take to do certain things. And I think as we come up on what kind of the next plan looks like, we'll have more answers and maybe be able to define a little bit more of a clear picture of what that looks like in the future. So Matt, did I state that correctly?
Yeah, I think so. For our standpoint, and I don't want people to think we've been lax on trying to get another study done. But what we realized is the last time that study was done, there wasn't a lot of anything behind it from the utility saying, well, let's do this. So this time we had it planned ahead of the comprehensive plan, and we decided to hold off till the comprehensive plan was completed to know what are the challenges the desires of the community. And then we're not going to try to eat the elephant all at one time. We're going to take we're going to break it down into smaller surveys and answer some key questions at a time and try to be responsive to that. So it's not for lack of wanting to have a more in-depth plan. It's just trying to get ourselves timed right to be able to answer the questions. So this will look a little generic, but going forward, I believe we'll be able to do a better job of answering the questions or the desires of the community.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, so I just wanted to have a review of that, and like I said, we'll bring kind of final numbers and information, and if there is anything else that we should discuss, especially regarding these unconstrained needs, let me know and we can work that into the conversation. So with that said, the reason we're all here today is the project scoring for the roadway projects. And let me bring that up on the share. Okay, so I still don't have local priority information from every community. So I didn't know, let's see, who do we have on the call today? Unfortunately, I don't think we have anyone from Republic today, do we? Am I missing that? Um, so we can kind of follow up on that, and we will be meeting in person on the 24th, and we'll have an opportunity to kind of finish refining kind of all of this list. And so I want to make sure that we are all, all of our communities are able to kind of step in and have a chance to discuss what goes on to that constrained list. So we will kick off with the information that we do have today. And, I think we'll still have some room for adjustments. And I want to thank those that were able to provide us with some additional information to try to fill in the gaps that we did have in some of the scoring items or some of the construction dates. And if you have any additional information, we can plug it in during this meeting, or, we can kind of finish seeing what that looks like before the 24th. So as a refresher from our last meeting, we did pull out, these additional kind of area-wide projects and asset management and things that we know we're going to need to do going forward, as well as the TIP projects that are programmed between 22 and 25. And so that leaves us with just a little bit of funding in each of those years, especially the outer years, because MoDOT does not fully program in the outer years of the STIP either. And so going forward, we inflated though it is, we have about $700 million left to play with as far as programming funds. And this spreadsheet should kind of automatically populate these columns as we decide what to move into the constrained funding list. So with that said, I've kind of got it set to automatically highlight projects with 70 or more points. There are a total of 140 points available. I do not believe, I think 90 is the highest that any one project has scored. Or there's a 95.
Natasha, I have a question.
Yeah.
These local points, the
Mhm.
local priority, do they move over to the, are they included in both the unconstrained and the constrained list?
Yes, I mean, they're part of the scoring. And so I guess we haven't really defined what's constrained and unconstrained yet. So if someone says something's a local priority, even if it doesn't score very high, there's they can always have that conversation and ask to have that be in the constrained list. We usually do try to at least start the filtering with all of those higher scores first, but then we know that there's projects that either don't have points because they're new or there's just not information, and so that becomes part of the conversation later.
So those local priority points do help a project get onto the tip?
They help a project get onto the constrained list because it just raises their score.
And it stays, that score stays with it, right?
When it comes to the TIP and the STIP, that's a slightly different process. But
I think you need to talk about that because
Okay.
I don't understand this local priority rating.
okay, so it's a chance for projects that maybe don't score well because there's not data available, or maybe that community doesn't have something like I-44 going through it. And so it's a chance just for those projects to maybe make a little bit more of a showing, and for every community to have a chance to maybe have something that rises further to the top. So the list that we're developing, the constrained list, it will be, it's all the projects that we think we can afford between now and 2045. And from this list, we pull the projects that we prioritize for the tip and STIP. And so that ends up with a much, much smaller number of ranked projects at the top than what we're able to do here. And so, you know, we may find, let's see, we've got, I think, let's see how many projects, about, you know, 200 and some projects. We may find 100 projects make it onto the constrained list. Whereas when we go to do the STIP prioritization, we'll pull from those 100 projects and maybe only program 4 or 5.
And then they get re-rated on the STIP, right?
Yes, and that's a slightly different process because we are having to narrow it down to such a small number of projects.
Okay, and then for the ratings for the STIP, there is no local priority
No,
field.
no.
Okay, all right, that helps me. Thank you.
So are there any other questions about kind of the process or the scoring or the dollars? Okay. Well, I thought we might look first at just some of those highest scoring projects and let's see so we can see everything. So right now our highest scoring project is I-44 from Kansas Expressway to Glenstone. I know that we've prioritized I-44 through the STIP process. We've applied for build grant in the past or infra. So I guess, does anyone want to kind of make a suggestion for, what parts or all parts of I-44, perhaps we go ahead and move over to the constrained list? Or if someone wants to start with a different project first.
So Natasha, I was reviewing the spreadsheet that you sent out earlier, and I'm sorry, I'm just now getting to that, but I did think that we should look at moving the years up a little bit.
Okay.
And this may be because of what I experienced trying with one lane closed last night. But I was thinking for this section from Kansas to Glenstone, looking like at 2028.
Okay.
And then for this section from West Bypass to Kansas, 2030. Knowing that new federal funds might be a good opportunity to accelerate even from there. I think in general it'd be desirable if we could get at least one more section on the 2024, although we're quickly running out of time to design that, with our eastern piece that we plan the program. But I just think that we don't have a lot of tolerance out there anymore.
Frank, what do you think of those numbers? Those look really low, 27 million and 12 million.
Yeah, let me check that. That looks right for construction. Maybe we don't have engineering in there. But we do have new estimates in those.
Hey, Frank, what are the safety and operational improvement projects on I-44?
Yeah, I saw those too, and I was going to talk about that next because I think we can actually remove some of those on the sections we're going to widen, because I think the widening will address those concerns while we're doing that.
Okay.
Are we going to focus on the higher scoring projects for a while?
Yeah, I think that's a good spot to start today.
Can we redo this list so that it has them based on their score?
Yeah, let's just. make sure that we're not accidentally rearranging something there. Let me resort.
Great, thank you.
Natasha, would it work better if I just followed up with those estimates after the meeting?
Yeah, I think we'll be okay today. Let's see if I can get this just to sort the selection.
The ones there don't look too far off. It's just the engineering question. Yeah, I think on that, the section from Kansas to Glenstone, do you want us to look at just the 6 laning or the 6 lane with the auxiliary lanes too? That's kind of like the question for everybody.
Do you want those as separate stages or as one or the
Frank,
other?
what did we put in that infra grant? Was it both?
I can't remember.
I guess because I was thinking that whole, what, $68 million project was what we wanted, and that's what we should just plan for.
So I think that had all 3 segments in there. Plus, I think they had the New Melville bridge replacement.
Okay.
I don't remember about the aux lanes. Stacy was on here earlier. I don't know if she's on anymore. Let's see if she remembers.
I'm here, and that's what I was thinking it was all in there, but I was getting ready to go pull it up and look at it and double check.
Okay. Now I've got them in order. So it does, yeah, kind of ungroup some of those I-44 projects, but kind of come back on that too. So I guess let's just start with number 95. Does any, I mean, I think we're all in agreement probably that that one should probably be on the constrained list.
Yeah.
So how this works is as long as we have, you know, the construction year and the cost in there, when I put C for constrained, it will automatically populate based on you know, where that information puts it, and it will inflate the project. So that'll adjust a little bit as, you know, if there are changes to the estimates, but so the next ranked project is Kearney from Kansas Expressway to Glenstone. Does anyone have any comments or want to make a recommendation on that project? And if you have any questions,
Constrained list, is that what you're looking for?
yep. And so if anyone has any questions or wants to talk further about why a project scored the way it did, you know, Dave can go over that as well. And we can dig into any of those details. So then after that, we have 2 separate Glenstone projects, one from Sunshine to Battlefield and one from Grand to Sunshine. And these are safety and operational improvements. They're already, Frank,
Aren't those already programmed?
are these programmed in the STIP?
We've got like the first phase programmed in 2022. So I was going to propose that we change that to 2030 for the next resurfacing cycle,
Okay,
because there is more we could do.
on both of those or all of the various Flintstone?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know really when it comes down to if we have 750 for each segment.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the whole section. And so if you, you know, should we just divide that by the number of segments or do you foresee kind of a variation in cost depending on which?
I
portion?
guess I would suggest combining the segments if that's possible. I know it's
Okay.
gonna rescore things, but
Well, then basically everything would end up with that higher score of 88 because it would receive the highest scores along the segment. I guess it could actually kind of change depending on the safety because it's kind of indexed to the length, correct, Dave?
Yeah, those are all calculated in the SS segment files from MoDOT. So I'm not really sure. I think, they want to calculate the rates based on at least a mile long segment. So if a segment's not that long, they'll adjust that to calculate their rate, I think. So
So if we were to do combined segments, just kind of highlight that for my notes. It would be 750,000 is what was proposed, I think, for that whole distance before we broke it out for scoring. And so, Frank, are you proposing that we put that on the constraint list as well?
yeah, I would.
Okay. And then
uh,
we can just kind of, I guess, pull out these other ones. I think we have.
on Kearney,
Mhm.
we have an estimate for safety and operational from the airport to LeCompte. That's 1.8 million.
So for which section or for which
From the
project?
airport to LeCompte.
Okay.
I guess the way it's sorted now,
Oh.
Kearney's spread out everywhere, but
Yeah. So let's see. Let's do this. So you pretty much have that whole, and do you want to combine that one again as well?
yeah, I would suggest doing that.
Okay, and you have it as 1.8, you said?
1.833.
1.833. Okay.
That's from the airport to LeCompte, right?
Correct.
Okay. Oh, so I guess that includes, that's that one too. Okay. Okay, so that kind of cleans up the list a little bit. So then the next one, Frank, I wanted, or Springfield, to talk a little bit about this because it was initially, we just kind of had the whole thing phased without defining which phase. Now we've broken it into segments, kind of based on where the MoDOT segments break out for scoring. And so there were 3 different years proposed for various phases of Kansas Expressway, but we weren't sure which segment, which phase wanted to go with. Springfield did ask to put their points on one of their local priorities on what ended up being Sunshine to Battlefield. There was a request for making the segment Bennett to Sunset, but that is, the scores are broken out from Grand to Sunshine and Sunshine to Battlefield. So we can always redefine it, going forward, but just knowing that the scores maybe don't correlate to those exact segments.
Yeah, I got stuck in reviewing this spreadsheet on Kansas because I wasn't sure what assumptions I'm going to make, especially up north, about doing just operational things versus trying to 6-lane. I think we want to ultimately get to some 6-laning on the south piece, but we've talked about different strategies for how you might implement that. I think it's just kind of basically we've brainstormed that, and by that I mean that just various comments at various meetings. Maybe we focus southbound, start at Bennett, instead of just going from south to north. But I feel like it really needs some kind of traffic intensive study to look at the patterns and come up with recommendations for how we might start breaking this into doable pieces.
Tom, you got any comments here?
Yeah, Frank, just to go off of that, it's really, we're trying to maximize the capacity there at Kansas and Sunshine. So whatever widening to Kansas would provide us the greatest capacity improvement there at Sunshine is what we're after.
And I feel like our traffic data, I've found a couple of issues with it in the past on Kansas, and I'm still not sure that it's showing us the true pattern. So I don't know if it's how we're getting the counts, we have the right spots or not, but I don't know if we have a realistic feel for where traffic, like maybe it drops some at Battlefield as you go south. I don't know. And then it's all starting to change with the Kansas extension.
Sure. Yeah, I think we would expect more demand on Kansas anyway once that's extended. But yeah, I think we would want to key on operational improvements at that particular intersection, knowing that that's it's probably our greatest constraint along Kansas is at that at least within the city core is there at Sunshine. So anything we can do to try to get throughput north and southbound through both directions of Sunshine is what we would see as a priority.
Okay, and we can, I mean, if you want to break that out separately, we can do that. Another suggestion, of course, not everything scores as high on that whole corridor. And so we can talk about that a little bit too. But and I can pop over to here real quick, where we just show Kansas and you can see the scores. So it's a really short section between James River Freeway and Republic Road. So there's really just probably not a whole lot of information to impact the score either. So that one scored really low, but we could potentially narrow that down. We could potentially go back to recombining this with the 3 phases, and then just put a third of the cost in phase 1 in 2026, a third in phase 2, and a third in phase 3, and but then maybe call out Sunshine and Kansas. The worst section is is Norton Road to Kearney. And we do have a study program this next year to kind of look at that with I-44.
If we got the interchange in there as a project, I think that would be that project.
Okay. Well, and that would be, kind of this one. So what year would we want to put on something here?
Do you mean for the interchange area?
Mm-hmm.
It's getting a lot of, we've got a lot of public comments on it recently.
Well, and we still don't know what the solution will be until after we do our study, but just ballpark.
I'll throw out 2027.
Okay.
What do other people think?
I'd be optimistic.
Makes it cheaper though, because it doesn't inflate it as far out. So this $20 million was for kind of that whole, phase 1, 2, and 3 of the whole section. And so do we want to throw out some kind of number there?
I would
guess
say
what's
20s. Go ahead, Kirk.
Oh, I'm just gonna say what's been discussed leads itself to rebuilding every intersection and ramps and big magnitude.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's, what we talked about would be redoing the interchange with the new bridge. And so that's putting me, 10 to 15, but then I think Norton may need something too. We may need to get really creative with that.
So 20 might not be too far off just for
Right.
that project.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Oh, not enough zeros. Okay.
Yeah, it's in that range.
And I think the 20 we had for the south piece really is more sunshine to James River Freeway, that segment.
What was that, Frank?
I was thinking the 20 million is more just for the sunshine to James River Freeway.
Okay.
I could look up our estimate on that. And where I got stuck was, I don't know what we want to do from I-44 to Grand or Bennett.
Okay. Yeah, and that let's see. So after Norton Road to Kearney, the next worst piece is Chestnut to Grand.
Yeah, is it safety driving that? Score high?
Let's see what we've got.
It's a number of things. It's AADT, it's volume to capacity, and safety is not really high.
Okay.
Yeah, current volume's 15. Volume to capacity is 8. Yeah, it just kind of maxes out the number of those scores.
So is the volume capacity the same on the whole, basically everything south of Chestnut?
The biggest piece of that is, I've got my map, I think. Well, I don't think. It's that jog. Yeah, it's the whole thing. From Grand to Chestnut is all maxed out volume capacity.
Okay. I was thinking the volumes were lower north of Grand, but that is in the area where I was also seeing some odd things with the ADT numbers.
Yeah, let's see. When we did this, the AADT, 2020 AADT was down. So we decided we were going to use whichever was higher, the 2019 volumes or the 2020 throughout this scoring. So that roadway AADT right there is 44,000. And that's the higher category. And I think that's the highest AADT along Kansas.
Yeah, it looks like it based on the scoring, at least on the volume to capacity.
Yeah. So from Chestnut to, I think College, it's 43,137. And then the rest of it, well, from Mount Vernon to Grand, it's at 44. So it varies slightly, but that's 40,000 all the way from Chestnut to Grand, according to
Okay.
it. That's probably 2019.
At
And
one
then
point, we
Dave
had
does-
the
go ahead.
MoDOT, it was doubling the north, I think it's the northbound, like it picked up the southbound traffic. So we had like, we were saying we had 60,000 on it, and we had 40,000 going one way and 20 the other way. So I think I got that fixed, and it sounds like your number has it fixed.
Yeah, and 2020 AADT, let me see. So southbound was 14,149. And northbound was 21,739. So in 2020, the roadway AADT was 35,888. So this is that 44,000 is what it was before the pandemic in 2019. So
So I
it
think-
was, I'm sorry.
But I was gonna say, I guess, it may be the highest segment. We may have it's scoring high because presumably that's where the congestion is, but I don't think that's where we see it. And I think on the MoDOT measures, we're seeing it up by the interstate and down by James River Freeway, where we have the backups. We're getting the complaints right now in the north part. I don't know what the city sees traffic wise or what they hear about. It's just, you may be, yeah, the volume of capacity may be worse there, but it doesn't seem that you were having the problems.
Yeah, well, we've got our capacity, the roadway capacity there is 35,500. And of course, the current, even in lower 2020, that surpasses that as far as AADT. And then the future volume is about the same as it is in 2020. So I think it was much higher in 2019.
It may be not as bad just because we don't have to stop Kansas for as long. And this is out of my bailiwick on the traffic side, but I would think that Sunshine and Battlefield, we're trying to cross as much traffic across Kansas or get it through the intersections as is on Kansas, whereas Grand's maybe not as bad. And you don't have that issue again until you get towards Chestnut. So maybe it's more about the intersections and having to stop the north-south traffic for more east-west. And maybe
Yeah, that's
why
kind
we
of
have-
what I was trying to make too, Frank.
Okay,
That, I mean, on, arterial roadways, it's more, your constraints really more at your intersections than it is on the segments. So just looking at segment volume, doesn't really tell the whole story. We consistently see backups there, particularly southbound in the afternoons. And Sunshine in Kansas typically ranks toward the top, if not the top, consistently with as far as the number of crashes in the city. So very frequent we have southbound, rear end crashes. It's mostly attributable to those backups.
I think the segment volume is driving a lot of these scoring criteria with the volume, and the volume capacities to account for a lot of that. So
Sure.
Are our fatalities higher in those sections too, Tom?
I'd have to look into that. See, I know that we've had, particularly lately, we've had motorcycle fatalities, but I, wouldn't attribute that to congestion necessarily through those segments. But yeah, we could take a look at that and see.
I know that the most recent motorcycle fatalities were after the new year, and our this information is only up until 2020. So a lot of that stuff isn't captured in the safety score. And I know there have been more recently.
Yeah, and Kirk, I think you mentioned the one that was the rear end, the motorcycle rear end crash there between, what was that, between Bennett and Kansas or Sunshine?
Is that the one the past week?
No, that was the second one, actually.
That's what I was thinking. There was 2 of them, and I thought in both cases the motorcyclist hit a tree or a light or something.
There have been a couple of, yeah, single vehicle down near Broadmoor, but it was, I think, one that Kirk referred to it actually was a rear end crash where the motorcyclist actually hit the back end of the backup or back into the queue.
So, sounds like a lot still kind of up in the air, short of knowing that you really do want to address something at Sunshine in Kansas. So do we want to put in a separate kind of just intersection that maybe doesn't go from, one segment to another? Or we can kind of, knowing that this is where the scores are, just say, we really want the project called out to be Bennett to Sunset, or kind of making those adjustments.
Isn't that what you were proposing, Tom?
Yeah, and that was more so just to get the 3 lanes through the intersection at Sunshine in both directions. I mean, if we stop the improvement, then you really don't get the full benefit at the intersection.
And then we need enough length so we can get good lane utilization.
Right.
That's set up for 6 laning on Kansas, right? Already.
It is both. Yeah, both at Sunshine and at Battlefield.
Okay.
In fact, the pavement's there at Sunshine between there and Elfindale. I believe at least southbound it is. I'm not sure about northbound.
Yeah, I don't know if it is northbound. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I know it's off of MoDOT, but the section from James River to Republic, it seems like that's pretty much set up too.
Yeah, I think so.
I wasn't sure if anything there.
Yeah, that would just be some restriping.
Any suggestions for a potential cost for just that intersection?
Frank, did we have a number before? Because I know we talked about this about a year ago. Seemed like
I was
six
looking
million
at,
is coming to mind.
we scoped from Bennett to James River Freeway and had the current estimate is 20.66 million.
You were thinking maybe 6 just for that intersection, Tom, at least for now.
I think that's what we had. I think
Okay.
that's the number we had thrown out last time we had discussed.
Is there a year? Like what year would we want to assign to that?
The earliest you're doing is 2027.
Yeah, unless, it's something that we would want to put in one of the outer years of the STIP, which
We just don't know yet.
we just don't know.
We can do 27 now and adjust later, right?
Yeah. Okay. So then as far as kind of the remaining pieces, we've taken care of the interchange and then just that intersection. But how do we want to address kind of the other pieces? Do we want to recombine them? Kind of just break out the costs?
Well, with the south piece of Kansas being constructed, Adam, Don't we anticipate that that traffic will grow from there south? And I just say Adam because I'm hopeful that they'll start construction soon. Tom, do you agree with that though?
Yeah, I think that was one of the points, and trying to get traffic off of Campbell was one of the benefits of getting, getting traffic onto Kansas Expressway extension. So yeah, I think it only makes sense if we're going to see more demand.
Yeah, and so, and those segments would probably adjust and those numbers would change too going forward, but so what we can do is still just kind of leave it as phase 1, 2, and 3 and combine the sections and then not really specify, but just say, a third of the funding in 2026 or 27 or whatever it is, and then a third in 31 and a third in 2040. Unless you want to kind of look at the individual sections again.
I think that makes sense, since I feel like we still need more study of what's the best approach.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with traffic too.
Okay, so Frank, this 20.6 or so is the estimate for, you think, Bennett to James River Freeway?
Yeah, because it's really close.
Okay,
Ours is 20.66. And I feel like that could still overlap with the 6 million we're talking about at Sunshine.
yeah. Okay, and so as far as what we kind of put into this phase 1, 2, and 3, we've got a separate project to Kearney, and then kind of a gap from Kearney to that where the estimate starts in at Bennett. Do we want to make that a separate phase in and of itself? Or just make it all part of that combined project? Any preferences?
I'm trying to think about if we try to add something to the tip. We're not going to know yet exactly what that's going to be until more traffic analysis is done. So I think the more flexibility right now, the better.
Okay, so if we were to add that additional length, how much more do you think that whole segment would cost? So if we were to say Kearney to Republic and know that the Sunshine and that intersection was pulled out.
Well, okay, so I think you can break it up Kearney to Grand.
Okay.
And I think Grand, you're really just starting to, what you're doing at Grand is you're picking up what has to be done for Sunshine. I mean, I think the traffic break is really Sunshine, but you've got to get Sunshine ready, and that's where you work on from Grand to Sunshine.
Okay.
So from Kearney to Grand, I think you're looking more at operational types of improvements, and I'm not really sure what that looks like. But you've got Chestnut's been improved.
Aren't we constrained by that railroad bridge?
Yeah. I guess do we think 6 laning has been, that was my question reviewing the spreadsheet, is any 6 laning north of Grand beneficial based on traffic projections? and
I
is
don't know.
even
Tom,
feasible.
know anything about that?
Yeah, I don't know if that's been looked at closely, but
And maybe it's more just turn lanes or, getting the queues out of the through lane if there's any backups there.
Yeah.
Okay, so on some of our other operational projects, so Kearney was more in the 1.83 for that long segment. Sunshine was 750 for that whole section. Do you want to say a couple 100,000, a million for
Yeah, I was
operational?
trying to think of it in terms of some intersection improvements.
Those are usually a couple 100,000 each, right? So
Yeah, well, 2 million if
more.
you're like doing a big signalized intersection, but there's
Yeah.
not many of those really. And maybe Division's one of those. They used to go like that.
yeah, I was thinking division. Yeah, and Frank, to your point, and Kirk, to your question about the railroad constraints, obviously the viaduct would also be a major undertaking,
Yeah.
widening north of division.
Yes, say 6 laning to the north is, I mean, you're probably getting less benefit from the 6 laning. It's going to be way more expensive because I think you'd have to
Right.
buy out some houses between Division and Chestnut, and probably north too.
Potentially sound walls.
Yeah,
Okay,
yep,
so
definitely.
do we want to say a couple million?
So I'd say a couple million, and then say you were doing a handful of minor intersection improvements that are around the 300 range. I don't know if Tom has a feel for that. I was thinking like 2 million for Division, and then I don't know about the others.
Yeah, I think 2 million division, but yeah, I don't have a good cost. Of course, yeah, good luck to anyone who's estimating construction prices.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll say Kearney to Grand, $3 million.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then Grand to Republic. Maybe just kind of stick with that 20 million.
Yeah.
Should we back it off with that intersection and taken out?
Well, that's probably good because I think our estimate just went to Bennett and we're going a little bit further to Grand.
Okay. Okay.
I think it will also help that we have the improvements at Walnut Lawn and Sunset already
Yeah.
programmed.
Yeah, that's true too.
Hey, Natasha, I just wanted to, this is really bothering me. Then we've got that Sunset intersection improvements at Sunset. I'm sorry, that's an Ozark project. That's
Yes.
in Sunset. And I don't know why that score is so high,
Okay.
because the spreadsheet that I sent you, it had a score of 23.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
And
let
that was-
me,
Yeah, before the local priority. Unless those guys in Ozark think that's a really big priority down there, I don't think it should be that high.
okay, so let me see what happened here.
No, that's a mistake, Dave. You caught it. That's not a high priority. Thanks, though.
I wondered why that one got in there.
So did something happen when I resorted these?
No, it was in there before.
Maybe it was a hack.
Oh,
Somebody hacked the sheet.
It's the Russians.
no, let's see. Yeah, because
Steve lives off that road, so he may have hacked it and altered the score. So
well, now you've got me wondering if something happened here. Let's see. Are there other scores, Dave, that look?
Everything else looks really good. I mean,
Okay.
that's what scores high. It's that Glenstone, Kansas.
For some reason,
that's
that
what
one
scored. Yeah,
something weird happened. Okay.
Yeah, that's the only one that's an oddball there.
Okay. We will double check that. Okay, so let me we'll just clean this up real quick. So we'll just call this one Kearney to Grand. I'll highlight that just so we kind of know that's an adjustment. And then we'll call this Grand to Republic.
Then you might want to put a note in there. You have to take the sunshine piece out.
Okay, thanks. And then, so we've got the section constrained from Norton to Kearney. We have the Kansas and Sunshine intersection, and then Kearney to Grand. In what year do we want to put, do we want to make that one of the further out ones, or 2031?
Probably 31, wouldn't we, Tom? Are you muted?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think, if that sounds reasonable to Frank.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me.
And then if we wanted to split this into phases, so we could make this kind of divide it by 3 or thereabouts. Something like that. Okay, let's see how this is kind of doing on our spreadsheet now. So we still have obviously plenty to go. We haven't done that many projects yet, but it is kind of filling those in. Okay. So any other comments on Kansas? I think that takes care of that. We already corrected for Sunset and Ozark. So then we have, I guess, more of I-44. So West Bypass to Kansas Expressway. And then Frank, you said that some of the safety, let's just go back over here. On I-44, some of these safety and operational improvements could probably get pulled out.
Yeah, I think the ones that overlap with widening, you can go ahead and take out.
Okay, so we
might, like the 360 to Chestnut, maybe Chestnut, the 160, we might want to leave those in because those have a better chance of being done. I don't see them getting 6-lane very soon, so I think we might need something in the
Okay.
interim like that. But I think West Bypass to 65, we could take anything out there.
Okay, so Kansas to Glenstone, Glenstone to 65. So those three probably could get pulled.
Yeah.
Okay. So then do we want to constrain, and is 2030 the right year for West Bypass to Kansas? And then this one we can just pull. And we can
So we should be
pull.
back. We're going to resurface that in 24. We'll be back in 30. So we could tie the resurfacing in 2030 for the 160 to Kansas. No, that's not right. 2032. It's every 8 years.
Okay, so 2032 instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be nice to have it right now. Although there would be a big hole in the road then, I guess, if that happened. So
Right. Does this sinkhole present concerns for widening, and what else might be discovered?
I have no idea, but it's a little disconcerting. We keep having holes opening up around the roads in the area. It's not the
I look
first.
at that area, 44 and 160 up there, and there's a lot of sinkhole areas.
Yeah, there are.
So I think, more so than other places, that was pretty surprising. And there are a couple that are just right off of where that happened. So with the more rain and everything, and usually with the change in the runoff pattern and stuff like that, you get these things opening up. But it's been so wet, who knows what's getting eroded underground. But that is kind of a active area for sinkholes.
Here's an advantage when we do go to do the 6 lane, we fill in the median, it's all gonna be closed up. You're not gonna have the soil exposed. So we would likely encounter something during construction, if anything, and then we'd mitigate and take care of, filling it in with the pavement and everything.
So really 6 laning's creating resiliency for future concerns. Okay, so let's see, I'm just gonna fill this in. So I feel like we've not gotten off on anything. So Jeremy, just knowing where this scores, and obviously we can always make adjustments later, but just for the sake of things, do you think that would probably end up on the unconstrained list? That
Yeah.
Sunset, okay. Okay, so we still needed to mark that one. And then that puts us at Route 14 improvements from Route NN to 3rd. Any thoughts there?
Just from Ozark's point of view, after pitching this to MoDOT and whatnot, it seems like A, it ranks higher than we had anticipated, and B, it's probably the most cost-effective solution outside of getting another bridge crossing over the Finley. So I think that's why this has risen to the top. I think Frank and Stacy can add in their viewpoint as well.
Okay.
And the city's expressed interest in cost sharing that, so I think it needs to be in the constrained list to help
Okay.
move that forward.
So then, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I would look at sooner than 2031.
Okay.
Yeah. Jeremy, do you have a year you're going to apply for that project?
2027 is what we show right now, maybe sooner, but I think that's a good starting point.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that sound feasible from MoDOT standpoint?
I don't have any concerns with that.
When's Bass Pro gonna open?
I'm sorry, what did you say, Kirk?
Do you know when Bass Pro is gonna open?
They say October. I always tell people October of some year, they will be open.
They're saying October of this year, 2021?
That's what they're saying.
Interesting, okay.
I agree. I'm having a hard time seeing that, but
Okay, so then we have Glenstone and Sunshine. We don't have a cost or a year.
I'm
Any,
curious about what the proposal is for that.
That came off of our give us your input map. So that was a map of concern.
Okay.
I think it's pedestrian oriented.
We've got pedestrian signals, all 4 crossings. Sidewalk on all 4 sides of the intersection, all 4 legs, I mean. Dual lefts everywhere, right turn lanes. So I'm stumped about what we will do there.
Yeah, I don't.
him too.
okay, well, we can just skip that one for now. Next is I-44 from 65 to 125. Do you see that more likely as staying safety and operational?
I do, but I would say that's probably the, kind of an area we need to be looking at once we get 6 lane of Springfield done.
Okay, and we've got it showing like it would be in the STIP. Would you probably want to adjust that year?
Yeah, because I think we were talking about some of the ramp intersections in 24 with our project, but not the ramp extensions necessarily. So I would look at trying to think when we're going to resurface that segment. Let's make it the same year as when we would 6 lane the west bypass to Kansas, which was 2032.
Okay.
If we can fit that in.
And then this was another one where the segments are broken up, but the costs were not. What do you think would be a reasonable number for that? Because I think it was, yeah, kind of all of that was showing that 4 million.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I think we've talked about extending some ramps at 125, and I think that was in the freeway study too. What I don't have a feel for is at Mulroy if we need something there. I'm worried about trucks in both interchanges.
So do you think 4 is still a good number even just for those 2, or maybe cut in
Possibly.
half?
I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that.
I think it's a best guess right now.
Okay. So then we have US 60 safety and capacity improvements through Republic in 2030, but with no suggested cost.
We have an estimate for the piece from James River Freeway to the new MM.
Okay.
I think that'd be the priority. I'd feel better if somebody from Republic was on here to confirm that, but
Okay, well, we can,
it's,
That's what, when I was talking to Olson about that study, that's what they had talked about, being the first segment and then the second segment going to 174.
yeah, that makes sense to me.
I think that all those segments, that's the complete corridor there. So, but I think most of those segments are in there somewhere. And I don't know. I think I just scored that entire corridor instead of breaking it out like the other ones, but those pieces are in there, scored individually along that corridor. There should be.
okay, so Frank, I think this one is the one that you were mentioning. And then the 174 to MM. So number
Yeah.
23.
So that may
Number
overlap
two
with that
would
other
be
one
great.
then.
Okay, let me see. Just gonna see where these popped up real quick. Okay. Oh, wrong one. There we go. Okay. So, okay, we're kind of out of those highest scoring, but then I also don't have the local priority from Republic either. So, do we have a cost estimate for either of these segments?
We do have one for the segment from MM to James River. I was trying to find it. It was like 8.5 to 9 million.
Let's see if I have. I keep losing that one. Let's see. Okay, yeah, we have 9.2 for that one.
That sounds good.
Um,
I don't think we had anything west of there. And then I don't think anything's been looked at west of 174.
Did a while back have like the far west end of Republic, and that's what I guess I was going to ask. I wasn't sure how far that was, the intent of that was going to go.
Yeah, we do have, because we have one for like west of Miller Road,
Yeah.
going towards Billings for the future 4-lane.
okay. Well, even though it has scored down here based on conversations and other things, is this something we want to move to the constrained list? Since we're talking about what's probably the higher priority out of that area.
Yeah, I think you want to look at the piece from MM to James River at least.
Okay. Okay, so do we want to kind of just sit tight on this one for a little bit and come back to it?
Yeah.
Okay. So then our next section is from M to Main. As far as scores. And then we have, oh, go ahead.
Without Republic being here, did they submit this project?
Let me see. It came from the STIP prioritization list.
Okay, so what we're doing with this step prioritization is we are doing the capacity that we just talked about. I think I'm going to do from James River to M and then M to 174. And then I'm going to do intersection improvements because it's already 5 lane through there. So I don't think that there'll, I don't think in the next 20 years we're going to add any capacity, but there are several intersection improvements that need to be done. So I would recommend we just change it to that. And maybe we could do it in 2 phases, maybe, I don't know, 7 million total, 10 million. I think we're still kind of refining that number, but.
Okay. There a year or 2 different years we would want to look at putting to that?
Yeah, I'd probably split it.
Okay.
Maybe one early and then, 5 years later or something.
I'll clean that up. So we are coming up on 11 o'clock, and I know we're probably going to start losing people. Any other, just real quick before we call it good for the day, just kind of.
I guess that next one on
yeah,
for signal timing, is that an anomaly?
just being that kind of a project.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
is that supposed to be in there? How'd that come up?
I think it came up from the map of concern too. That was something that was a comment.
Yeah, and so we tried to capture, even those kinds of projects that maybe weren't necessarily submitted through, each member, just trying to capture all of those public input items too. So, that is kind of a project that could probably be handled outside of really the TIP process completely, I would guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. So then the next one after that would be Chestnut Expressway. And that's when it's from Kansas to Glenstone. And so let's just look real quick on what we have. So we have kind of a handful of Chestnut projects.
So, if it's just purely safety, it'd probably be captured in that safety plan, which I think we have at the top. But I was curious about, especially east of Glenstone, is the thought that we do any 6 laning out there, or is it just more of the, like we talked about on that section of Kansas from Kearney to Grand, more of the intersections and operational type of things?
I think initially we could do a lot with just extending turn lane length, especially at Patterson. I don't know if Tom or anyone from the city's got thoughts
Yeah, I
on.
agree with that, Natasha. I think probably just some spot intersection improvements, smaller capacity improvements east of Glenstone. I think that section, particularly through downtown, is something we would be interested in trying to possibly look at something a little more substantial with, with widening possibly 6-lane through that stretch between Kansas and National and/or Glenstone.
Yeah, so is this description maybe not fully accurate? Do we want to say capacity and safety improvements?
Yeah, that's probably good for now, isn't it?
And then probably whatever pedestrian improvements along with that. Okay, we do have just $1 million on this. I imagine that's probably not enough if we're talking beyond some
Yeah,
simple
that's low.
safety. And then we have 2031 for a year. If you guys want to think on that, I was probably just going to kind of call it there for today. We've kind of gotten through those higher scoring projects, and now it's going to be a matter of probably a lot of discussion on, what pieces of different things we want to pull over. We still have some funding left in each year, so I think we're fine on the fiscal constraints so far. Nothing's getting tight yet, but I think we've got a lot of big projects still coming up. So I will clean this up and we'll reshare it again before the meeting on the 24th. And we hope to see everyone there and in person. Does anyone know or have any concerns about being in person at this point yet? Okay, well, great. It looks like we've started to lose people too. So thanks, and we'll just kind of pick it up from there and hopefully be able to kind of finish getting through all of these.